Hey guys, Harv here, and welcome back to the Kerbal Test Pilot. This is the show in which I bring to you the most innovative and interesting ships that our community has to offer. The first ship in this kind of new format is submitted by the FOD. Thank you very much for your submission. This is a single stage to orbit called the Shryke 1 Mark II, and let's get into our universe here and take a look at this thing. It's pretty impressive, I have to say. It is pretty damn impressive. Where are you, Mr. Shryke? Shryke, single stage to orbit 1, Mark II, 130 parts with 2 stages. It's intended as a crew transfer vehicle, according to the email, for eventual deployment to Lathe. I would like to be able to dock, but I haven't added that yet. This single stage to orbit can get into orbit with minimal rocket fuel usage and maximum cross-range capability. It is intended to make getting into orbit and back to the KSP easier. It can also fly in the third layer up on the atmospheric gauge. That's pretty impressive, and so is the ship. Intakes! Man. That is a lot of intakes. I recommend, he says, that you fly it like you would a normal single stage to orbit, but then upon reaching the third layer of the atmosphere, you should throttle down to roughly 2/3 throttle to avoid flameouts, and hold altitude at about 0.1 total air intake until the speed reaches about 2,200 meters per second. At that point a periapsis should have appeared, and you can then switch to rocket power for the short burn to orbit. So this ship is actually very different than most single stage to orbit, where they rely on rocket power to actually get you into orbit. This thing can go orbital speeds on intake air, and then it's only a little bit of rocket fuel needed to boost you up to that stage where you're actually out of the atmosphere. There are a few things that I'd like to change about this. There's a few criticisms that I may have, but on the whole I think this is going to work spectacularly. Let's take the brakes off and let's try. I know I've already done a single stage to orbit, and my idea kind of was to, you know, only do one type of each vehicle. Okay, well that's the first problem. Those engines turn on. Do we have... 2 is to turn that on, 1 doesn't do anything. 3 is to turn off the back engines. Okay. Well, not a problem. Okay, so whether animation bug or no, pitching up actually makes these flaps come down. That's interesting. We'll see how that affects our stability. I have to say it does look really nice. But will it pull up off before the end of the runway? That is the question. Yes, even with my bad takeoff. Ooh, need to trim up. Alt S to trim up. Tip of the day. Oh, come on, trim. Come on, trim. There we go. Oh, yeah. See, we're flying, we're fine. Okay, so we're going to take this basically how we did with our other single stage to orbit, the Splitter. No, was it Splitter? I actually can't remember the name. Whatever the case, we're going to do pretty much the same thing. Now, one thing I would say is, why do you need all that aircraft fuel? That may become self-evident later on, but there is a lot of aircraft fuel, and for only 2 engines, I'm not sure how much of that is really necessary, but we'll find out. So we're going to... The idea of single stage to orbit, for those of you who don't know, is that we're going to rise up as high as possible. Hold altitude as high as possible as the intake air allows, just using the aircraft, the air-breathing engines, in order to maximise fuel efficiency. We're going to hold altitude as high as we can in order to build up as much speed before jumping up into orbit. But with this ship, we're actually going to get up to orbital speeds before that has to happen, which is really impressive, and perhaps this design ideology could definitely give some inspiration to the way of single stage to orbit. Certainly inspiration in terms of aesthetics. Somehow it manages to have, how many is that actually? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 18 intakes, 19, 20 intakes, and yet it manages to actually host them and look pretty good still. I should pull up a bit more. We have advanced the CS, so I should probably use it, see how much flapping happens. Ooh, it is the aeronautics package, so it's not going to be too much, and that's pretty nice. I'm still concerned about why this flap is actually pointing downwards in order to try and pitch it up. This has happened to me. You get it where the the flaps don't really know where to point. And I'm not sure whether that's animation bug or whether that is actually the fault of the AI of the computer, of the game. Maybe something that will be fixed in the future, who knows. But yeah, it doesn't seem to be making any massive difference, so I think it might well be an animation bug. Okay, so we're going to get higher. Now, there's not... The instructions basically say get up to the 3rd layer of atmosphere, throttle down to 2/3 to avoid flameouts, and hold altitude at about 0.1 intake air. Our intake air currently is 3.97, so we've got a little while to go. And the 3rd atmospheric layer is this blue area, which is basically on the edge of space. So I'll be very interested to see. Ooh, that is dropping very quickly. Let's point more down. The closer to prograde we point, the higher intake air should be. There we go, it's not dropping so fast. And we'll rise at around this pitch, I think, around 20 degrees above the horizontal. That should give us the lift we need, and increase the speed as well. Okay, so if we are reviewing the ship, what do we need to have a look at? Well, a nice thing to have a look at, if we picture a bit more actually. Nice thing to have a look at is how well does it handle physics warp? ×2. Not badly, a little bit of shaking, no major trajectory deviation. Pretty nice. Just gonna tilt up a little more. I want to try and get up there. Okay, so that was ×2, ×3. Oh, a bit more shaking, not bad. Definitely not bad. ×3, that's very good actually. ×4, the ultimate test. And it still works fine. Although, of course, the problem being that we become overconfident because as you time accelerate, the game thinks that you're moving faster through the air, so your intake air goes up. So, that's why you saw it shoot up just then. But it definitely passes the physics warp test you saw just then. It was a minor flapping as a result of the advanced SAS, nothing really major. Alright, now we're going to point horizontal. This is the point where we need to get up as much speed as possible. And at 25 kilometers above the surface, we have a ton of intake air. 0.36 and steadily falling. And we do seem to want to be tipping backwards. That's probably because of the fuel drain. I need to adjust my trim again. There we go. We don't want to fall back down, but we want to get as much speed as possible for our altitude. 0.35 and holding, speeding up nicely. Okay, so we're falling back down. I need to make sure we're not falling, and as we get up to the 3rd atmospheric layer, and our ship begins to burn, as we get to the 3rd atmospheric layer, I want to throttle back to 2/3. That is apparently what we need. So we're not quite there yet though. I'm happy just to carry on at this. Maybe my criticism about, do we really need all that fuel? We have only used a quarter so far, but I imagine we may take a little while to actually get the speed we need. So we'll see. And it does say, does it say, or is that something else? It's designed to have maximum cross-range capability, so having the copious amounts of fuel probably does aid cross-range capability quite a bit. Okay, so at this point we're going at the altitude and speed that we'd expect to jump into orbit with, but we're going to push it further with the single stage to orbit that the FOD has submitted. This is pretty nice. I really like this ship actually. Only down to 0.29 and we're still rising and we're still accelerating. And we're not burning nearly half as much as I'd expect. Oh, yep, 0.27. Nearly into the 3rd layer. The 3rd atmospheric colouring bar. Okay, and we're going just over 1,770 meters per second. I don't want to take things too quickly, and I'm beginning to think that maybe I should start throttling down. If I can throttle down and still accelerate. Yep, we're still accelerating. That's good, that's good. 2/3 is around here. We'll keep it here. I think this is fine. This basically constitutes 2/3. Continue to accelerate. Come on. 0.19. The target is 0.1. And we are so close. We're almost into the 3rd layer of atmosphere. 0.7 or 0.17. The re-entry effects have stopped with that high. Man, this thing. What's the efficiency of the engines at? Gotta watch the thing. Specific impulse is 1208 and falling. Falling slowly, admittedly, and 1208 is still extremely efficient, but I think this amount of fuel is justified, definitely. Ah, yes, we're nearly at 2 kilometers every second. Every second traveling 2 kilometers. This thing could circumnavigate like a bouse. It really can, and we're definitely into the third layer of the atmosphere now. So we're throttled down to 2/3, our intake air is nearly at 0.1. We just need to make sure we don't rise too much and get as much speed as possible. 2.2 kilometers a second is the target. 0.12 meters, 0.12 intake air. Man, look at the stars. The stars have appeared now. I want to take a screenshot, but I'm too scared because I need to keep an eye on all my dials. Oh. Come on, point as horizontal as possible. 0.11. Go throttle back a bit more, just onto the 2/3 needle. 0.11. Still rising, probably not for long. 32 kilometers. About 2/3 fueled remaining, and we're over 2 kilometers per second. Impressive. Very impressive. A very impressive ship indeed. Now, the question is, do we have enough oxidizer to get this thing into orbit? We're nearly at 100 meters per second, only another 100 meters per second of delta V to go. I hope you can tell I'm excited, because I am. I want to see if this thing will work. This has, in fact, this has completely changed my perception on how to do single stage to orbit. We're very nearly at our target. We're still rising, which is good. Now let's take actually a bit of a detailed look. There are a lot of struts which suggest an inherent instability in the ship, which is not a problem. I mean, ships are going to be like that if you try and be too advanced. We're now at 0.1 intake air, or 0.10, and we are nearly at our target speed. Do we have a periapsis? Oh, it's close. And our apparatus is actually still rising. Oh, we're at 0.9. We're going to get flame out if I don't do something about it. Okay, so we're swapping over to liquid now, throttling up, and take off the other one. Okay, and we're going to trim up. Do we have the fuel? Do we have the fuel? Oh man, yes! Yes, we do have the fuel. Already 155. Admittedly, that's falling. But we definitely have the fuel. What we want to do now is just get out of the atmosphere, because at the moment the atmospheric drag is what's pulling us short of our target. Trying to get up. We don't want to be pointing backwards, certainly, but I want to get up out of the atmosphere. That's my target. Come on, you. Put advanced SCS on. Burning at 1/3 throttle. Have we closed the intakes? Yes, we have. The action group actually does close the intakes. Oh, and our aeronautics package isn't doing anything because our flaps are useless in the high atmosphere. Something to note. Okay. Well, as we rise, and we rise... I'm not doing this particularly efficiently, but it doesn't seem to matter because this thing has a ton of fuel left. Okay, is 160 enough? Will atmospheric drag us back down too far, or will we be okay at 160? I think we will. So this ship is actually extremely effective at what it does. That is really, really good. It's actually brilliant. Let me take a really nice screenshot. I want to show this thing off. There we go. Will I have enough space for the logo? About there should do it. That is a very, very nice ship. I really do like this one. Okay, so let's evaluate what's good. What's so good about it then, as we cruise up to altitude. So the design itself looks pretty nice if we go for the aesthetic judgment first. So it's got the nice two winglets that we all like to see at the back. The wing shape is unorthodox. It has horizontally mounted structural rings like this. I've been doing this design quite a lot, but on the front, as opposed to actually on the back like this. But it makes for quite a nice streamlined look. The aeronautics package is in a very good place. Having it on the nose cone of them makes it look stupid, and it's good because we actually have this cockpit, despite not being able to see anything currently because we're pointing too high up. having this cockpit is definitely a plus, because look at that view. That is what we like. I wonder if this thing can take us to the moon. Maybe we'll have to test that, depending on how much fuel we are left with. So yeah, having that is definitely a plus. And are we out of the atmosphere yet? We're nearly out of the atmosphere. There's one thing that may need to be improved, and that... Well, no, I'm not saying it needs to be improved, definitely not. This thing works extremely well. Changing anything might remove that. But it does operate on a equal system. So there's two things here, and there's, you know, there's two liquid engines side by side, and two air-breathing engines. We're actually on chaser camera, aren't we? There we go. There's two liquid engines and two air-breathing engines, which is why we have the struts, because that can be an inherently unstable design, as we've seen. But this definitely pulls it off without too many problems. In fact, 0 problems. There's actually not been a problem with this ship yet. That's pretty nice. I think we could probably increase efficiency if we only had one liquid engine, because the extra thrust probably isn't necessary. That would cut down the weight, the thruster weight a little bit. Or increase the thruster weight, I should say. Increase the thruster weight, certainly. Yes, this ship, I actually have no complaints about it. I think it pulls off the whole spam intakes idea really, really well. Okay, we're out of the atmosphere now. Let's warp to our apoapsis. Just want to get up there. We'll burn prograde to get this thing into its 143 kilometer orbit. And then, maybe we'll see about going to the moon. I think we might be able to do it, you know. We may end up stranding our pilots in space, but it's for the good of all Kerbal kind. Pointing prograde. Burning. Now, because I'm bored. There we go, there we go. Don't need to raise it to 133. In fact, we're actually pointing a bit below the horizon. We don't need to raise it to 133. I just want it about, say, 100. We don't want to waste too much fuel getting into orbit. There we go, 100. Okay, let's see about taking this thing to the moon. That's never... I've never done that before, and the amount of fuel here really does show that. Show that this thing is incredible. Okay, let's try and take this thing to the moon. So, the moon's already sitting behind us. Where are you? You're over there. Okay, we just need to time warp around. The problem with having a low orbit is that you can't time warp very fast. Oh well, not to be concerned. The moon will rise shortly, at which point we'll be in the perfect position to do our lunar transfer. If we have the fuel. There we go, the moon's there. Okay, let's point this thing round. Oh, this is going to be so good. I'm going to have to use this design in the future. This could potentially be an interplanetary single stage design. I may have to work on this in the future. Make some Harv changes. Okay, pointing prograde and burning. Alright, luckily we were near enough the periapsis, so as a result of the Oberth effect, which is that you get more bang for your buck the deeper down into the gravity well you are, as a result of the Oberth effect, we're not wasting too much fuel trying to get this thing. If we were at... Oh, no. If we were at the apoapsis when we burned, we'd be slightly less efficient. But it doesn't matter, because that reading there is actually telling us liquid fuel that we're actually wasting by venting. That was telling us liquid fuel. The oxidizer we don't nearly have so much of. Oh no! Oh no, and this leaves us at a dilemma as well. Because we have no... we do have a way of thrusting actually. But we have no liquid fuel to get back into the atmosphere with. I'm really sad actually. If this thing could get to the moon, with better piloting it's possible. I would like to make some changes. Do I extend the episode or do I leave it there? I think I may tag a little bit onto the end of this video with changes I make. But let's try and land this thing and then we'll make our conclusions on the ship. But yeah, the fuel gauge was telling us not oxidizer levels, just liquid fuel levels. So it overestimated how much fuel we actually had. What we're going to do now is we're going to warp round to the apoapsis, and we're going to use the RCS which this thing has, despite being unable to dock, which is actually a minus. You did say in your email you would like to add that in, but being unable to dock means that we can't refuel in orbit or anything. But we do have quite a lot of monopropellant, so if we just point prograde and burn backwards, we should be able to lower our periapsis in no time. There we go. Shouldn't take too long. We'll point this thing prograde. There we go. Got quite a lot of thrusters on here. Are they balanced around the centre of mass? They look like it. They look like they very much are, which is very nice. I do like the placement of that. That actually works really well. Okay, we're nearly back into the atmosphere. Yeah, so tons of monopropellant is pretty nice. But that is the shortcoming of this ship, that there's no docking port for refuel in orbit. If there was, and if there was more oxidizer capacity, then this could definitely be an interplanetary single stage, which is a massive thing. I know there have been ships in the past, not planes, that can do interplanetary single stage, but having this as a plane that can land on runways and be reused, which is the important part, landing it safely, easily being reused, that's a pretty big deal. So the fact that this can actually get into this high in orbit anyway, despite not being able to get to the moon, shows it's a pretty damn good ship. Okay, we're back into the atmosphere. Is 30 kilometers. If the Kerman's going to rotate, so the site we want is going to be around here. If we bring it down to 20, I think we might be able to accomplish something with that. Bearing in mind, this is intended for maximum cross-range capability, so I don't think we'll have a problem getting back to the runway. Let's just hope at any rate. Okay. With that done, we can turn off that, and we can warp back into the atmosphere. We will want to point retrograde. We'll want to point retrograde and upside down, because by the time we do half an orbit, we'll be pointing in the opposite direction. So we should be pointing prograde when we re-enter the atmosphere. Okay. Put that there and warp. So yeah, my conclusions on this ship were pretty much wrapped up. It's incredibly good. It is incredibly good. It is the best single stage to orbit I've ever flown so far. If you would like to submit your own and try and beat the legacy this thing has created, if you'd like to prove that you're better at creating a single stage to orbit, then you can submit your own ship into the test pilot show by following the instructions laid out in the description of this video. That involves sending me an email, providing me with a screenshot, your name, the name of the craft. You must tell me where it's built, whether spaceplane hangar or VAB, and that's pretty much it. Tell me what it's intended to do, and hopefully we'll get some good submissions after this, because this is just something that has to be beaten. And unfortunately, I didn't really think about how much Earth or Kerbin was going to rotate, so we may have a little bit of flying to do. Let's open up the air-breathing engines. There we go. Intake air should be rising, hopefully. Now, there's a notorious danger for aircraft, which is flat spinning. Let's hope that doesn't happen to us. We'll turn off our liquid engines. There we go. And we're getting intake air, throttling up to 2/3. So we're going to try and land this thing despite how far off we are. Although we're not that far off. It shouldn't be too long a flight at the altitude this thing can accomplish. Intake air is rising, so we're going to go straight back up. There's the burning. There is the burning that we were all expecting. It's nice. It's beautiful, like a hawk. But at this point in time, I just want to try and get back up to speed and altitude, because I don't particularly want to land here. I want to land back at the Space Center. So perhaps coming in at such a steep angle wasn't such a good idea, but hey, I misjudged. Our intake air is rising, and we are nearly rising ourselves, actually. We didn't have to dip too far down to the atmosphere. So let's make some conclusions on this ship. That's what I've been saying for the past minutes. It is extremely good, aesthetically pleasing, completely functional, impressive capabilities, with very little room for improvement. That is my thesis on the ship. If I had to give this thing a mark out of 10, it would have to be a 9.3 or something. Not going to give anything 10. There's always going to be room for improvement, but there really is very little of this. So a 9.3 is a damn good score. It's probably one of the best, probably the best justified score we've given on the show so far. So congratulations to the FOD. You, sir, are awesome. I need some sort of stamp. Rated! Approved by Harv! That's what I need. Okay, bearing in mind we may actually get flameouts again. We could put this thing back into orbit! We couldn't, but it'd be nice if we could. Okay, let's I just want to set this thing down quickly. So, having concluded with the ship, we'll probably do some time acceleration and get back down to the landing pad. So, in conclusion, an extremely capable single stage to orbit with plenty of fuel for mucking about along the way. Thank you very much for watching the video, guys. If you liked the video, please do like the video. If you'd like to become a YouTube partner, I have a referral link in the description, and I shall see you all next time.